Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Mr. Ajay Macaden, FMCG and Retail Lead, Strategic Analytics and Insights from NielsenIQ. A warm welcome, sir. Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ajay. I represent NielsenIQ. And in the next 10 minutes, I'm actually going to take you through the science of uncovering growth through the spatial lens. Okay. Okay. Now, the traditional way of market prioritization has been primarily based on demographic data. That's age, your gender, family size, population. Those are the aspects which have always been used to look at market prioritization. Demographic data is fantastic, it's valuable, but the lack of actually putting on any other layers tends to actually not necessarily give you the full gamut of what you can actually uncover from a perspective of urban growth. So that's why I want you to introduce you the spatial aspect of it. And there's a science to this whole thing. Let me walk you through this. And essentially, what is spatial data? Spatial data is essentially what it means. It's space, right? And the use of space. So it's anchored primarily through addresses, coordinates, as well as boundaries. Now, that data that you look at, it helps in a lot of ways. You can look at patterns. You can look at how do you want to actually look at growth from that perspective. There are various aspects that can actually be used looking at spatial data. Let me just deep dive a bit more. What are the various factors for spatial data? The first one is luminosity, night light, which we capture through satellite lenses. Light is unnatural during nighttime, right? So if you see spots of luminosity, and the greater the luminosity, it tells you that there is an increase in terms of development and population that exists there, right? That's one part of it. You then have open spaces. You might say, open spaces, what does that mean? It also means boundaries, etc., which is necessary. It could be landmarks, it could be parks, etc., which also is critical to understand the lay of the land. Then you have your built-up spaces. Built-up spaces essentially actually tells you how is urban distribution happening, how is growth happened. If you have a lot of infrastructure growing up in those spaces, be it construction, residential areas, infrastructure, it actually indicates that there is growth happening in that space. And therefore, there is urban development taking place. You then have road networks. A simple thing is, if you have light and a cross of roads, it's an unnatural aspect. But if there is a huge growth of luminosity over there during night, it tells you that there is a huge amount of traffic in that area as well as population. So again, an indication of growth. Then you have what we call the service network or points of interest. Now just think about it. If you have schools, ATMs, banks, it also tells you that there is a residential growth which is happening there, and therefore growth from that perspective, right? And the last one is income. Now we are NielsenIQ, and Nielsen does the retail audit. It also, with the acquisition of GfK, has the durable audit. Those expenditure data points, actually with our modeling, can actually give you that kind of indication in terms of expenditure data. Why is it important? Very simple. It helps you with targeted marketing. It actually provides insights into consumer behavior. It also gives you, as a business, if you want to look at opening up new stores or looking at expansion, it actually is a good indicator of where to go and how to. But also, interestingly, it's also a great place to look at competitive data. And it actually gives you a read on the competition per se, right? And that's where you can actually take a call to see what you want to do from a gap and opportunity perspective, and therefore tweak your strategy accordingly. I'm going to say, Ajay, hey, come on, all that is theory. Tell me give me some practical example of this. The proof is always in the eating. So what we did is we looked at Class 1 towns. Class 1 towns defined by a town which has a population of greater than 1 lakh or 100,000. We ranked it, we used the demographic data, and we got the numbers. Greater the number, worse off it is. So you're looking for the lower number, like a rank. Then what we did is we also looked at the NielsenIQ spatial data, and we then re-looked at that order. You see some differences? Very clearly, there are some across all. Actually, you can actually see there's a huge ascendancy of certain towns which have climbed up when you also look at spatial data. Now, what does that tell you? It tells you that if you are looking at growing hotspots and growth hotspots, it's critical that you just don't depend upon demographic data, but you also look at spatial data. Now, some of these ones have seen some huge jumps, 315 climbing up to 130. Look at Kozhikode. So we looked at north, south, east, west of India, right? We picked up districts across the board. At a district level, we can do this. Let me introduce you to the NielsenIQ precision wheel. Now, if you look at this, there are a lot of aspects to it, wedges to it, and it's got numbers to it. Now, this is based on econometric modeling that we do, based on demographic, spatial, as well as expenditure data. This numbers definitely changes depending on the target that you're looking at, right? So just be careful. Don't use these numbers and plug it into whatever you want to do. They does change drastically depending on the target audience. Now, if you look at this, if you look at the spatial data aspects, it nearly covers 60%. You're looking at built-up area, 20%. Points of interest, 19%. Road length, road cross-sections, etc., also coming into play. You also have population, which is your demographic data, and then you have the expenditure data. Now, what does this precision wheel of NielsenIQ give you? Now, the beauty on this part is that it tells you where your consumer is, who they are, what are they going to spend on, and how much are they going to spend on. Now, if you're looking at some kind of analysis and you're looking at expansion, those Ws are going to be extremely useful for you, right? And that's where this Nielsen's precision wheel comes into play. Again, let's just give me an example. So again, like we said, remember the table before where I showed you the differences? I'm looking at the same aspects, north, south, east, west. The green dots that you see is basically using this built-up area, which was 20% in our flywheel. Just wanted to take one aspect and explain to you how important built-up area is from a spatial perspective. Built-up area in 2018 is the green dots that you see across. Guess what happens in 23? Look at the expansion of the built-up that has happened. So it's a simple, using just one variable, you can actually look at this movement. And it tells you what's happening in terms of built-up area. Some of these have got pin codes. So the beauty is we do it at a district level, do it at a town level, and then within a town, you can actually look at pin codes. Same thing. You're looking at a pin code, again, using the same districts. We've gone down to the towns with the highest prioritization from a micro-market perspective. Again, the green areas are the built up during 2018. And if I look at 23, look at the kind of huge built up that has happened because of development over the 5 years. Now, if you're looking at demographic data, it would have told you the numbers, but it wouldn't have told you how it's actually spread across these towns and pin codes. So this is great. So what do we do next? You come and tell me you're looking at certain expansion plans. how is this going to help me? Like I said, using the wheel, you look at all the three elements. You look at demographic data, you look at spatial data, and you look at expenditure data. And what you can do is actually beautifully look at a 5-kilometer radius for your pin code, and say you're in the food business. You can actually figure out, with the plotting of those QSRs, where should you actually be. Now, that's the level of data points that you can actually build. Not only that, it also gives you the population, where, what, how. And this is just a glance of what we've presented. There's a whole depth of data points that can actually help you. Now, this is one part of it. Now, say you're looking at another in Thane. You've got schools and you've got banks. Why schools, you might ask? Those are residential areas. If they're residential areas, it also gives you a sense of economic growth. And therefore, what are the other opportunities for you for actually looking at expansion within those areas, right? Same thing you have in Bengal. Same thing, you looked at auto. And I'm giving you these examples because primarily our data points and the vast richness of our data can be used for any category. And we have a lot of them were here who use our data points. And just wanted to give you a flavor that this data is very much available for putting a science into selecting where you want to go next. This was in Kozhikode. You're looking at erstwhile Calicut. You're looking again at that 5-kilometer catchment. And within that, you're looking at, say, apparels and footwear. And it also gives you an indication of where is the central marketplace. If you see a clustering of those outlets, it also gives you a sense of that, right? So all of these elements with a customized kind of feel gives you a lot of data points in terms of what you can actually do with this data. Simple takeaways: don't just look at demographics. Try and see if you can actually look at the other aspects of NielsenIQ's precision wheel, right? And if you layer that spatial data, it adds a huge amount of value to where you want to go next. And definitely, please reach out to us if you want to do any kind of work, right? So if you're not taking into consideration NielsenIQ's precision wheel, please reach out to us and scan the barcode, download the presentation. Thank you very much.